So Parikshit Raja asked many questions to Shukdev ji, and Shukdev ji is now narrating that prasang where the knowledge that was given to Brahma ji by Bhagavan Narayan himself, because similar questions Brahma ji had also asked. So as a reply, he is quoting that. So in the 9th chapter, in the beginning of this 9th chapter, we saw about how that supreme soul, the pure consciousness, which has nothing to do with the world actually, but by the power of this Maya, seems to get associated, and then forgetting oneself develops the feeling of aham and mama, becomes the jiva. And then through bhakti, it can become free from these misconceptions. So those first 3-4 verses spoke about that, how it becomes free from this notion of this I and mine, transcend the 3 gunas. Then we also saw that Brahmaji, when he was created, in the earlier chapters it was said, when he was created, then he did not know what to do, how to proceed forth with the creation. So he heard the words tapa tapa. And he thought, let me follow the instructions, and he did tapas. What is the form of the tapas there? It is not like physical penance of standing on one leg, raising the hands up, lifting the head up, lifting the eyes up, none of those. It is single pointed thought, focus on the Supreme. And this he did for 1,000 years. And when he did that for 1,000 years, Bhagavan Narayana was very pleased. And then we saw that he got the darshan of Vaikuntha. And he saw various devotees there, the meritorious jivas there. And they look similar to the Lord. And the place is free from disease, sorrow, suffering, all those aspects which we saw. And finally, he also comes to see the Lord himself, Bhagavan Vishnu, Mahanarayana, who is being served by Lakshmi Devi and Bhudevi. So he reaches, passing through Vaikuntha, etc., he reaches this place. And we saw that when he goes there, he feels very devoted. There's a lot of love in his heart for the Supreme Lord. And the Lord also is very happy to see Brahmaji. And in that 18th verse, we see here that, the Lord holds his hand. The last line of this 18th verse says that, Priya Priyam Pritamana Kare Sprishan. The Lord holds his hand. That's the sign of his love for Brahmaji also. And bhakti has that, in bhakti the bhavana is very, very important. And touch has a lot of important role to play in that. And here we are not talking about ordinary touch, we are talking about the touch of the Lord, his hand. So Narayan Bhagavan is holding the hand of Brahmaji. So Priya Priyam Pritamana Kare Sprishan. In the Gita also it comes. Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham Atyantam Sukham Ashnute. Brahma Samsparsha, even a touch of Brahman sends the yogi into blissful state. That is said in the language of contemplation, a glimpse of that state. But there is a Brahma samsparsha. Sparsha word is there. Here it is kare sprishan, same. You know, in this world, in our in this finite world also, when two situations arise, you see. One situation is when you love somebody and they touch you. Suppose they shake hand with you. You know, typically they will show some boy or some girl who love each other, and first time, you know, let us say even they shake hand, they have not even expressed their love to each other, they shake hand, then this fellow will feel that, oh God, she touched my hand, now I should not bite it. All that kind of romantic stuff goes on. So in love it happens, and if it is somebody very important also, then one holds it very dear that, you know, I shook hands with whatever, you know, some celebrity or some sports star or some big leader, achiever, you know, I shook hands. And it is as though one lifetime achievement, and one goes on reveling in that, remembering that, sharing that with people. Here it is Brahmaji's hand is being touched by whom? Bhagavan himself, Narayana. Udiya Babaji used to say that every day, at least spend some time where, you know, in Hindi he used to say, भगवान से आंख मिलाया करो, 2 पल के लिए भी, 1 पल के लिए भी भगवान का स्पर्श कर लो, पूरे दिन मस्ती में रहोगे. Akhanand ji wrote that in his commentary. Beautiful that is. He says one example of some big person in his village who shook hands with some George V when he came to India. And that was his life's achievement, it seems. And he kept on remembering that even in his old age. So Akhandanand says, in the world, people remember like that. But the devotee can mentally visualize, and one should not think it's all my hallucination, imagination. No, Bhagwan exists. There's no doubt in that. And in the mind, when we think that, you know, Bhagwan's hand is on me, or Bhagwan has held my hand, it is not just some emotional drama or, you know, some sentimental stuff. The same people who talk about this as a emotional drama, sentimental stuff, dismiss all this, they will sit and brood on sense objects and how they are enjoying that and how this should happen and that should happen. That is actually a fancy, which is not real. Because they are superimposing happiness in the object which is not having happiness. Here when we are touching the Lord and we imagine Bhagwan talking to the Lord, Lord looking at us lovingly, we touching the hand of the Lord or the Lord's hand on our head, that is not unreal. That is only real actually. But anyway, human mind plays all kinds of tricks. So if we have to do that, we should visualize Bhagwan. Why visualize? Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa, why should one do? Visualize Bhagwan. And here it is not Brahmaji visualizing. Here Narayan Bhagwan is actually holding his hand. Science also tells us or not that the brain doesn't know difference between inside and outside. It doesn't know. So if you imagine an apple, which part of the, you know, brain lights up, same part of the brain will light up when you see an apple also. So where is the difference? Mind doesn't know what is the difference between, brain doesn't know difference between inside and outside. So think about Bhagwan also in that way. Every day or few seconds, feel the touch of the Lord, Supreme Lord. So now holding his hand, Bhagwan is telling him this, that he is very pleased with Brahmaji because Brahmaji followed the instructions. And that instruction, tapa, came from where? He said, I only gave that instruction. Tayaham toshita samyak Veda Garbha Sisrikshaya. You hold the Veda in your heart, in your stomach as though. Meaning within you, you have the entire knowledge of the Veda, which is the Aadhar for also creating the whole universe. So he says, with that, you have pleased me a lot because you still did tapas. You followed the instruction. Chiramritena tapasa dustosha kuta yoginam. And he says, I don't like these yogis who are hypocrite. Kuta yoginam. Varam varaya bhadram te varesha mabhivanchitam. Brahmachreya parishramaha pumso maddarshanavadhihi. All these we have actually seen, where he explains about this, that you ask varam varaya bhadram te, ask what you want and I will bless you with that. Because all tapas is meant for what? Getting darshan of Bhagavan. Brhat Shreya Parishramaha Pumso Mad Darshanavadhi. Whatever hard work anybody does, any tapasya one does, the final result of that is Bhagavad Darshan. Which means what? We should ask ourselves that question. The hard work I am doing in life, so much hard work one does to get money, power, position, name, fame, etc. Will it lead me to Bhagavan or not? Because all efforts must end in Bhagavad Darshan. That's what he says here. Brhat Shreya Parishramaha Pumsaha Mad Darshanavadhi. And all the efforts end in that darshan of Bhagavan. Culmination of all efforts is Bhagavan. So Manishitaanubhavoyam Mama Lokavalokanam Yadupashrutya Rahasi Chakartha Paramam Tapaha. So he says, you practice so much tapasya for 1,000 years. He did this just on hearing those two words. That shows the Shraddha. Because he didn't see anybody, he just heard the sound. So the power of hearing also, the power of Shraddha, both are conveyed here. That he heard and he implemented it. And he had Shraddha. So, and he followed that. So he says that because you have done that, you are blessed with my vision. Chakartha paramam tapaha. Pratyadishtam maya tatra tvai karma vimohite. Tapo me hridayam sakshad atmaham tapaso anagha. So he says that you didn't know how to proceed with the work of creation. So I gave you that instruction to do tapas. And why did I give that instruction? Because tapo me hridayam sakshat. He says tapas is my hridaya. See what is Bhagavan saying there. Tapas is my hridaya. So if we want to win the heart of the Lord, what should we do? Tapas only has to be done. And he says atmaham tapaso anagha. The tapas is the heart of the Lord, and the Lord is the heart of tapas, meaning both are one. There is no difference. All tapas must end in Bhagavad. All tapas must be to attain Bhagavad Darshan. And when Bhagavad Darshan happens, the fulfillment of tapas also happens. And we see that the Lord emphasizes so much on tapas, because that is alone capable of destroying rajas and tamas together. And finally, even sattva guna. Meaning the maya can be overcome by grace of the Lord. And by grace of the Lord only this tapas also happens, because tapas is his heart. Srijami tapasa eva idam grasami tapasa punah. He says, I also create this by tapas, and I again take it back also by tapas. Bibharmi tapasa vishwam. And he upholds. So creation, sustenance, destruction, all this happens only by tapas. here Brahmaji's tapas was single pointed thought. But that single pointed thought is not possible unless there is sense control and unless there is all those qualities, living in austerity, living in simplicity, living in sense control, living with honesty, integrity. Those things are the tapas. So now, having said these few aspects, Brahmaji is very pleased. Bhagwan is very pleased, and he has held Brahmaji's hand and he revealed to Brahmaji that how he creates everything, sustains, destroys by tapas. And he had asked Brahmaji, Varam varaya bhadram te. You ask and I will bless you with what you need. It's very interesting to know that Brahmaji didn't ask any material thing or any such thing. Many times other people will ask those things. Somebody may ask wealth, somebody may ask some power, somebody asks some siddhis, somebody asks for glory, fame. What Brahmaji asks, and he's standing in front of Bhagwan. Now see what he asks. Bhagavan sarva bhutanam adhyaksho vasthito guham veda yapratiruddhena prajnanena chikirshitam tathapi nathamanasya nathanathaya nathitam paravare yatha rupe janiyam te tvarupinaha. He says, you please tell me, O Lord, you dwell in the hearts of all the beings as their inner sakshi, as the witness. Sarva bhutanam adhyaksho avasthito guham. In their heart you are, as the sakshi, as the witness. And Veda hi apratiruddhena prajnanena chikirshitam. You already know, meaning you are in everybody's heart, meaning you are in my heart also. So you already know. Before even a thought rises, Bhagwan knows. By his grace only the thought rises. Tathapi, even then, you have asked me to ask. So please grant this humble request. What is that? Paravare yatha rupe. Para means supreme. Avara means lower. Meaning the formless and the form. Both. Paravare yatha rupe. Janiyamte tu arupinaha. You are having no rupa at all. Meaning by yourself, you are beyond form and formless both. So those people who say that, no, we are not worshippers of the form, we don't believe in Murti, we are only worshippers of formless. A worshipper of formless is also one limitation only. Truth is beyond formless also. Subtler than form is formless, but subtler than formless is the absolute. That's what he says here. Tu arupinaha. You are actually without any form or formless. You are beyond that. So Sagun, Sakar and Nirakar. That is called Para and Avara. So first question is that you please tell me that you are the one who is beyond form and formless. I want to know that nature of yours. What is that absolute nature of yours? Because with form the Bhagwan is anyway is there right in front. And formless, he has already done tap. What is that absolute which is beyond form and formless? So that is his first question. Paravare yatha rupe janiyamte tu arupina. Then yathatma maya yogena nana shakti upa brahmitam vilumpan visajan grindhan bibhradatmanam atmana. He wants to know what is the power of Maya. And with that power of Maya, just like a spider brings out the web from itself, how does the Lord bring out this whole creation, sustain and destroy it? So these are two questions. One is about Maya, other is about the creation. That how using that power of Maya, Bhagavan creates. Kridasya amogha sankalpa urnanabhir yathornute tatha tad vishayam dehi manisham mai madhava. So this 26 and 27, these are two questions. 25 is one question, 26 one question, 27 one question. Then Bhagavat Chikshitamaham Karavani hi atandritaha nehamana prajasargam badhyeyam yad anugrahat. And Bhagavan, you have given me the responsibility of this whole creation. I have to create. So you please bless me that I am able to do this work without being attached to it, without getting egoistic about it. And so, because you consider me as your friend, because Bhagavan has held his hand also. So he says, since you have acknowledged me as your friend, as any other friend would, yavat sakha sakhyuriveshate kritaha. But just like any other friend, what should you do, O Lord? He says that let me not be puffed up with pride. Praja visarge vibhajami bhojanam. Aviklavaste parikarmani sthito mame samunnadhamado jamaninaha. So he says, puffed up with pride, thinking that I am immune from birth, etc. Meaning, bless me with that humility that I should not think I am beyond death. I am also, like we know, Brahmaji's life is 100 years. So he says, let me not have a pride. Because even though I may be creator of the whole universe, one day I will also get dissolved in you. So you are the supreme. So let me remember that always. Let me not get carried away in this in pride. And what should I do? Let me remain in your service. As long as I remain engaged in your service in the form of creating living beings and unperplexed in mind, classify the jivas. Meaning according to their karmas, each jiva has to be given their karma, karma phala, etc. So now he has asked four aspects, four questions about the Lord, about the Maya, about creation, and about how to remain humble without getting egoistic about being the creator. The reply to this is what we call as the Chatushloki Bhagavat. So from verses 32 to 35, these are four verses which are the actual replies. This is called Chatushloki Bhagavat. The entire seed of Bhagavat is these four verses. And it is said that these four verses one should chant every day. Because 18,000 verses so we can't chant. But these 18,000 verses are an elaboration of these four verses. The objective of Bhagavatam is to get this intuitive insight of these four. So all the stories and other things which are there are meant for these four verses. And hence to memorize and chant these four verses and then to reflect upon it is a very great sadhana, especially those who are wanting to experience what Brahmaji has asked. Then that one has to, for that one has to do this. Chatushloki Bhagavat is a very, very celebrated portion of the Bhagavatam, and it is essence of Vedanta also. So what we have studied, since we have been studying other books of Vedanta also, so many of you will be familiar with some things. So it's not absolutely new. But remember, for those people who are not exposed to Vedanta, for them this is very, very important. Even for all of us, even if we have studied Vedanta, so what? The reflection on this portion is important sadhana. So now Bhagavan replies, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Jnanam Paramam Guhyam Jnanam Paramaguhyam Me Yad Vijnana Samanvitam Sarahasyam Yadangam Cha Grihana Maya. So he says, I will give you this knowledge, which is a very top secret, Paramam Guhyam Me. And I will give you with Vijnana, meaning I will give you the knowledge and also the way to experience this. Jnana and Vijnana, this 7th chapter of the Gita is also called Jnana Vijnana Yoga. So, Jnanam Paramaguhyam Me Yad Vijnana Samanvitam Sarahasyam, with all its secrets, Tadangam Cha, and whatever are the parts, limbs of that Grihana Gaditam Maya. You listen to me very carefully and absorb it. Yavanaham yatha bhavaha yadrupa guna karmakaha yathaiva tattva vijnanam astu te mad anugrahat. He says, by my grace you will know about me as to how great I am. What is my essential character? Yavanaham yatha bhavaha, in which way I exist. Yadrupa guna karmakaha, what is my form, how I manifest myself, what are my actions, what is my karma, all that. Yathaiva tattva vijnanam, and what is my absolute nature. All this you will know through my grace. So these two are the background for Chatushloki Bhagavatam. Now that Chatushloki Bhagavat starts. So the first question that was asked, so these 4 questions are answered in these 4 shlokas. The first shloka, 32, is about the nature of the Lord. Second is about Maya. Third is about creation. And fourth is about the means to know the Supreme, as well as this, what Brahmaji asked, that I should not forget your glory, I should not forget that I am perishable, and let me create this whole thing with complete humility. So that means, that is Viveka, that is in the 4th one, 35th shloka. So now first one. Ahameva samevagre nanyadyat sadasatparam paschadaham yade tacha yo vishishyeta sosmyaham. So now he says, Aham eva asam agre. Before this creation, I alone was. You see, this was word, asam, means was. That is because of time. Past, asam, asmi, present. So past, present, future is because of time. Time itself is a part of creation. When there is no creation, then there is no time. So time also is a part of creation. And here when Bhagavan says, it is only to make us aware that before the creation, Bhagavan alone was. That's what he means here. Meaning even before time, meaning he is a beginningless entity. Aham evasam eva agre. Because 2 times the word eva comes. No? Aham eva, asam eva, agre. I alone was in the beginning. So this source of this whole creation, before Brahmaji also, is this Supreme Lord. In Vedanta we call that Brahman. Upanishads say that, that one mantra says, Ekoham Bahusyam, I alone was, and now let me become many. The other one actually says that the Lord alone was, I'm not getting the exact mantra, but Brahman alone was. There's nothing else. No time, no space, no creation, creator, no upadhis, nothing. So that the absolute form is this one, which is what Brahmaji has asked. Beyond the Sagun and Nirgun, beyond the Sakar and Nirakar, what is your absolute form? That I want to know. So he says, Aham evasam evagre, na anyat. There is nothing else. Sadasat param. So what is the meaning of sad here? Sat and asat here. Sat and asat here don't mean real and unreal. They mean gross and subtle. Beyond gross and beyond subtle. What is the translation given here? Gross and subtle, correct. So he says that truth is beyond gross. So gross means the body, what we see, beyond all the forms, beyond all the objects. And subtle means beyond this mind, intellect, memory, ego, everything that is intangible, including vasanas. So beyond gross, beyond subtle, that which exists, that pure consciousness, changeless absolute truth. So the word eva, I alone was, one eva means that the Lord alone was. Second eva means he is changeless, not affected by any change. So aham eva, asam eva agre, nanyad yat sadasat param. And there is nothing else, meaning no duality at all. Not even a sankalpa. See that theory we may say, like we have discussed earlier, Upanishads can give many theories of creation. But these Upanishads are giving the theories of creation because we are seeing the creation. It is not that this is a fact. It is not to justify creation is real. Because what is changeless will never produce a changing creation. Will never produce anything. Why creation? It is changeless. So aham eva asam eva agre. Again, limitation of languages we have to say in the beginning, and was, all the limitation of language, limitation of our understanding of concept of time also. Because beginning, now beginning of what? So you will say beginningless time. Beginningless time actually is a oxymoron in that sense. Because there cannot be time in beginninglessness. Time has a beginning and end. It ends. That's it. It's finite. It's a part. That is what makes everything finite is time. Time itself is finite by itself. And everything within time also is finite. So the Supreme is beyond time, beyond form, beyond change. That alone was, which means that alone is even right now, but we are not seeing it clearly. So ham evasam eva agre. Nanyad yat sadasat param. Paschadaham. Even after this creation, I alone am. Yadetacha. And when this is there right now, also I alone am is appearing as all this. Yo avashishyeta so asmi aham. That which remains undifferentiated in creation, sustenance and destruction. The one substratum common in all, that I am. So what the translation says here, prior to this creation, I alone existed, and that too in my absolute state. Other than me, there was nothing gross or subtle, nor the cause of both, that is Prakriti. I exist even after the creation as well as in the form of this phenomenal world, and I am also that which remains after all this has disappeared. Yeah. So this is the first one which speaks about the absolute nature of the Supreme Lord, and this is only the true nature of the Lord. Beyond form, beyond formless, this is the absolute nature. Now think about it. When we say Hindu culture and people do idol worship and it is very primitive and all that, because they have not understood this. Even those who criticize Bhagavatam and those who criticize the Kathakars and those who criticize all these all stories and imaginations, if they actually sit through the study of the Bhagavad and listen properly, they will understand that in and through all the stories, the knowledge part is the most important part. Yes, maybe it happens sometimes that in a public discourse, some of the Kathakars may not engage too much in Vedantic aspect because it requires some background. And if you are addressing thousands and lakhs of people sitting in front of you, one may choose to just speak, glorifying more about the Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila, Kriya, Dham, those things, rather than this absolute nature. Because to explain this one line, how much background is required? That there is only one absolute truth. The creation never was there. It never is there also. And even when we see creation, it is Him alone. Because cause alone is appearing as all this. And even after creation, the Lord alone is. So the substratum remains. The superimposition rises, stays and falls in it. The theory of Vivartavada, it is called, the appearance. Not a production, not a modification, not a evolution, only appearance. So full Vedanta will come to explain this one line. That when he says in the beginning I alone was, even right now when all this is I alone am, which means Bhagwan only is an appearance. No five elements, no material cause, nothing. This all came from the Lord. Bhagwan alone is all this. So from Vedanta standpoint is the appearance through Vivarta we explain. From Bhakti standpoint, what do we say? Bhagwan alone is all this. So everything is divine here. So worship and treat everyone and everything with respect. And see the bhav that Bhagwan alone is manifesting as all this. So that one says from Bhakti standpoint. But here when one wants to know the absolute nature of the Lord, now the Adhikari is who? The student is Brahmaji. And the Guru is Narayan Bhagwan. Guru Purnima we just celebrated 2 days back. This chapter also actually tells us about the importance of Parampara. Brahmaji also had a Guru, Narayan Bhagwan. Then Brahmaji, after this you will see that Brahmaji gives this knowledge to Naradji. Naradji gives it to Ved Vyasji. Ved Vyasji gives it to Sukadevji. Sukadevji gives it to Parikshit Raja. This is the Parampara. And the importance of belonging to the Parampara is this. Why is a Parampara required? There are many reasons, but one important reason is this. Akhandanandji mentioned in his commentary this beautiful point. What he said is in the world, see, worldly knowledge when we want, then for worldly knowledge, one can do discovery, one can invent, one can find out, one can investigate on one's own. Maybe take help of some people, or one does by oneself also. And each one will discover something new only. But when it comes to the knowledge of the self, and in worldly knowledge, what is important is when we discover something new, the latest discovery is the most important one. One has to be updated with the latest technology, latest discoveries and latest findings and all that. In spiritual knowledge, it is the opposite. The most ancient knowledge is the greatest knowledge. It is the Lord who is beyond time is the Lord of the supreme creation, who is appearing as this whole creation. And that knowledge cannot be got by individual by themselves. That has to come from Parampara. So what knowledge Brahmaji got right in the beginning, before even creation started, that knowledge is what is passed on traditionally, which we are seeing also. No? Parikshit Raja asking question to Sukadevji. Sukadevji is not giving his own answer. Sukadevji is saying what Brahmaji got, that knowledge I am giving you now. So that's the importance of the parampara, because it is the time tested knowledge, the knowledge of the absolute truth, which is changeless. Even after many years are over in the Kali Yuga, we come to the end of the Kali Yuga also, even at that time same knowledge one will get. And same knowledge Bhagavan will come to restore also. If the people, the dharma declines, to dharma samsthapanarthaya, Bhagavan comes to restore the same knowledge. Because this knowledge is changeless, because it is about the changeless. And through the parampara only that knowledge of the changeless can pass, because the changeless is not available for perception. So it is not possible to know this without parampara. Now if somebody says, no, I will read the book and find out, Akhandanandji has done namaskar to all of them. He says these people are exceptions who don't follow any parampara, or they are Mahapurushas and Avatar Purushas. We can do pranam to them, but ordinary souls like us, we all need parampara, and we should follow, the parampara, and we should find out who is the guru. Meaning seek a guru, find out, and then get the knowledge in that parampara. So this chapter also speaks about that. So now Brahmaji is being given this supreme knowledge. And even before creation has started, what has Brahmaji been told by Bhagavan? Bhagavan said, I alone am in the creation, and I alone will be at the end of creation also. So Brahmaji can't have any pride at all. So his fourth answer, though he will give separately also, the fourth answer is also there in the first shloka. Maya is also there in the first shloka. Creation is also there in the first shloka. So in the first shloka, actually, all the four questions are answered. So if the essence of 18,000 verses is the four shlokas of Bhagavad, Chatushloki Bhagavad, essence of Chatushloki Bhagavad is the first shloka. Why? Because when he says that Paschadaham yatas chetat yade tacha, what you are seeing here also is me only. Then how it happened? Because of Maya only it happened. That changeless is appearing as this changing world. That is the power of Bhagavan's Maya. So first shloka covers all the four. The changeless nature of Bhagavan, Maya of Bhagavan, the creation, as well as the means to realize. If one holds on to Bhagavan, nothing else is required. So now that is the first shloka that we have done. Now the second one is about the Maya. Ritirtham yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyadatmano mayam yatha bhaso tatha tamaha. Yatha bhaso yatha tamaha. So what he says, what is Maya? What does not exist, rite arthe, riteartham, yat pratiyeta, what does not exist but appears to exist, and na pratiyeta chatmani, and what actually is, that is not appearing. Meaning the rope which is there, we are not seeing the rope. The snake which is not there, that we are seeing. Apply that to the world also. Brahman, which is the reality, we are not seeing, it is as though hidden. And this world which does not have existence on its own, it is only names and forms, empty it is. But that we are thinking it is real. So that power which makes the unreal appear as real and real appear as unreal, tad vidyad atmano mayam. Know that to be my Maya. Tad vidyad atmano mayam. Yatha abhaso yatha tamaha. It is like the superimposition. Like the rope and snake example. Here in the translation they say the word abhasa is taken as the illusion of the second moon. From where this whole thing came in the translation? Rahu and all that is written in the translation. That is from where? There is the Yatha Abhaso Yatha Tamaha. So that darkness during the eclipse. So you that elaboration of that is there in the translation. So it is just like the illusion of a second moon which obscures my being, like the presence of the planet Rahu in the midst of the other luminaries should be regarded as my Maya. Like this Rahu will eat away the sun or the moon. That's the belief about the eclipse. That's a Puranic story of how this Amrit was being distributed by Mohini to the Devatas, and Rahu, one Asura, he understood that this is a trick. So he disguised himself as a Devata and he went and stood there in the line for the Devatas. And when the nectar was served, he drank, but before it could cross the neck, Surya and Chandra Devata, they recognized that this is not a regular Devata, he is an Asura. And the moment they told Vishnu Bhagwan, with the chakra, Vishnu Bhagwan cut his head. But the nectar has passed through the mouth. So the head became immortal, body is the Ketu. So Rahu and Ketu. So Surya and Chandra revealed him. So he said, I will eat you up. And every time he eats up, but because there is no body beyond the neck, the sun and moon come out. So that's a Puranic depiction on the story. But the fact is, when he speaks about Maya, when he has said about Maya and the Yatha Tamaha, Yatha Abhaso Yatha Tamaha. So Abhasa is for the second moon, where there are two moons which appear sometimes. The moon is actually only one, but because of the clouds and because of various other factors, one thinks as though there are two moons. This Atma Bodh also gives this example, two moons. Double moon is a illusion, it doesn't exist. So the word Abhasa indicates that, and Yatha Tamaha indicates that. So in this context, when he has said it, it obviously means that Rahu never eats. That also these masters knew. So it's not that they didn't know about eclipse and they are being superstitious. They knew it doesn't happen actually. It's not Rahu eating. It's a geographical thing that is happening in the creation. Coming back to Maya, the point is that this is all expression of what is Maya? The power of the Lord which makes the unreal appear as real and the real appear as unreal. And that's why he says Atmano Maya. This Maya is not an independent power. It is a power which is dependent on the Lord and it makes this happen. Now this Maya also is from what standpoint? Maya Asti is from the standpoint of the creation. By itself there is no Maya. So three standpoints of Maya we should know. Absolute standpoint, Maya does not exist because Brahman alone is. The first shloka spoke about absolute standpoint. In that there is no Maya. Only with reference to creation then Maya comes into play. So in the absolute standpoint, there is no Maya. From the world standpoint, Maya is the cause. The material cause of this whole world is this Maya. And this is the power of Bhagavan only. And so from absolute standpoint, Maya is unreal. From world standpoint, Maya is relatively real. But from Maya's own standpoint, if you remove both these standpoints, if the reference points are removed, the standpoint of absolute is removed, standpoint of world is removed, what is Maya by itself? It is neither real nor unreal, nor both. Sannapya sanna ubhayatmikano, bhinnapya bhinna ubhayatmikano, sangapya nanga ubhayatmikano, anirvachaniya, This is Maya. Indescribable is Maya from its own standpoint. We can't say it is real, nor can you say it is unreal from its own standpoint. Why? Because the standpoints of the reference points are removed. That power is the power of Maya, which is the absolute, which is the power of the absolute Supreme Lord, which makes the Supreme Lord, who is infinite, appear as finite, who is changeless, appear as changing, who is imperishable, appears as perishable. So this explanation of Maya is also from the standpoint of creation, not from its own standpoint, nor from the absolute standpoint. And as long as we are identified with the BMI, world is real, then Maya is also real. When we are saying that world is an illusion, that is a sadhana to be done to come to understand that this is an illusory reality which is made possible because of the power of Maya. The changeless is appearing as the changing. So this is not real. The substratum of this is real. So when we go into the substratum, then Maya also disappears, creation also disappears. Samadhi avastha, that will happen properly. So till that time, how should I live in the world? With the attitude that I do my duty dedicated to Bhagwan, but deep down I know that this is an illusion, Bhagwan alone is real. So what was said earlier, no? The result of all tapas, parishram, hard work is Bhagavad Darshan. So with that bhav, I live in the world. The objective of understanding Maya in Vedant, because we go round and round with Maya. Maya anyway makes us go round and round in the world. Then we study Vedanta about Maya, then that topic of Maya also makes us go round and round. What is the objective? The objective is to know that this is illusory and Bhagwan is real. That's all. Beyond that, how much why should one keep doing intellectualization and going round and round about Maya? Not required. Essence is that this is illusory. And this illusion is appearing because of Maya. So I don't have to bother about Maya. I have to bother about this fact that, okay, there is illusoriness in this world. My focus should be on serving Bhagwan, that Bhagwan alone is real. For that, if I need to worship Maya in the Vidya Maya sense that, oh mother, please bless me with this Sadbuddhi and this Sattva Guna and destroy my Rajas and Tamas, then that is why we do the Navaratri Puja and all that. To finally know Brahman only. So the second line is about Maya. Third line is about creation. Yatha mahanti bhutani bhuteshu chava cheshvanu pravishtani apravishtani tatha teshu na teshvaham. Now this about the creation, what does he say? From where the creation came? Yatha mahanti bhutani. The five great elements, they have created this whole creation. They are the material cause of this creation. Yatha mahanti bhutani. Bhuteshu chashvat cheshvanu. And all these beings, they have been created with these five elements. Space, air, fire, water, earth. As though they have entered into all the beings. The five elements. Pravishtani. Apravishtani. They have entered, but they have not entered. And then the Lord says, Tatha teshu na teshu aham. They are in me, but I am not in them. So what is the translation here? Even as the gross elements may be said to have entered the bodies of all living beings, both great and small, after their creation, and they can as well be said not to have entered them. Similarly, I can be said to have entered the bodies of all the beings as their indwelling spirit, and I equally be said not to have entered them. Think more about this. we will take up in our next class. This is there in the Gita also, it comes, 9th chapter it comes. So this third and the fourth line that we will take up in our next class. Any questions for today? You are welcome to ask. Today is also the 60th class. So I will put up the link on the group. If anybody wants to offer any Guru Dakshina, you are welcome to offer. Any questions? Please raise your hand. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.